Welcome to Inside Operational Minds. This video series focuses on IFC's disruptive technology business in South Asia. We have visited our portfolio companies in their offices and brought to you their stories. Stories that highlight how these businesses are creating new markets and delivering on impact metrics while generating strong financial returns. Each of these examples demonstrates how erupting forces of technology are gradually disrupting the landscape of every industry. Hope you enjoy the series.
Hi everyone, this is Ruchira Shukla and I am the regional lead for IFC's investments in disruptive technologies in South Asia. Today we'll be chatting with Sigtapul. Sigtapul has built a leading solution that uses artificial intelligence to make lab testing smarter, faster and more affordable. Sigtapul is a portfolio company of Pi Ventures, which is one of the venture capital funds in IFC's portfolio. Sigtapul's solution has been tested on over 18,000 patients and has been validated by over 50 medical experts. They have filed for 26 scientific publications and have filed for over 35 patents. With me is the co-founder of Sigtapul, Tatha. Hello Tatha, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Ruchira, and it's so nice of you to visit us here in Bangalore. Welcome to our office.
Always good to be here. Let's start the discussion with your background and what led you to start Sigtapul.
Okay. So, you see, I have been actually working with really humongous amounts of data for quite some time. This was much before Sigtapul. I used to work at Yahoo, where we dealt with web search, web scale data. Then I went to American Express, where I met my co-founders Apurva and Rohit. And we found great chemistry amongst ourselves, and we thought that if any day we do something, we'll probably do it together. So in American Express, we actually helped build the big data capabilities right from scratch. And data is something which was dear to all of us. And when it came to founding Sigtapul, it was actually quite a leap of faith, because you see, neither me nor my co-founders have any background in healthcare whatsoever. So, but still, intuitively what we understood is that A, healthcare generates a huge amount of data every day, every hour. And B, very little of that data is actually ever put into use. So what we thought is that in a resource constrained setting like India, if we can unleash the power of that data using machine learning and deep learning, we could probably end up making the lives of the patients better. Not only that, even the doctors and the healthcare system as a whole. So that is the thought process that went behind us starting Sigtapul.
Wonderful, and clearly lab testing is a space within healthcare that does deal with a whole lot of data. For every sample that gets brought into a lab, several data points are analyzed, and your solution is using artificial intelligence to make that analysis faster, smarter and cheaper. Let's share some more details with our viewers. How does your solution actually work?
Great. So you see, we kind of fit into the overall existing flow in a laboratory. So the testing starts with creating a physical slide with a human's biological sample. Now, normally a pathologist would look at that sample under a microscope. What we do is we have our own smart digital microscope, which we call AI100, which intelligently scans that slide and converts that physical slide into digital images. These images are then pushed to our AI platform, where those images are churned through and things are extracted out of it. We say, for in the case of blood, we look at what are the different types of cells that are there. Is something which is not supposed to be there present, or which is supposed to be present not there. So all these things are actually put into a nice report with visual evidence and presented to a doctor on a web-based interface. And this can be accessed by a doctor on any web-connected device anywhere in the world. Now let me explain how that helps. You see, now earlier the doctor had to physically look at the sample, which means that the sample and the doctor needs to be at the same place. Whereas now, whatever the information that the doctor needs from that sample is already digitized, and she could be sitting in Bangalore and the patient could be anywhere else. And since the data is already pre-analyzed by the AI, which means that we have already figured out what the different types of cells are, classified them into different buckets, and done more or less around 90% of the job of the doctor already. She just needs to look at the report and sign off on it. This makes the turnaround time for reporting much faster. And finally, now that extra time that she is getting can be used to actually focus her attention on the really critical samples which really need her attention. which means that her chances of making an error on the really critical cases also goes down.
Wonderful. That's clearly very important. And in your description, you hit upon a lot of points that are very important to IFC. Firstly, we care about healthcare as a sector, and then we are focused on increasing access and affordability to health services. In your example, you talked about the doctor and the patient not being in the same location, and I'm thinking of applicability in the remote villages of India, which may not even have a lab. Or if they do have a lab, they may not have a pathologist. And digital solutions like Sigtapul can allow the samples to be read and for the data to be then transported to the city or town where the doctor sits. And that therefore solves for reach and solves for affordability.
Let me tell you some numbers here actually. So in India, the total number of pathologists would be less than 25,000, between 20 and 25,000. The number of labs around 100,000, and that serves a population of 1.3 billion. And now look at the rural population. 68% of India lives outside of urban centers, which means villages, whereas only 10% of doctors are stationed outside of urban centers.
And if you went down to pathologists, that number would be far less than 10%.
Definitely.
Okay, so clearly this is effectively a layer of intelligence on a microscope.
Right.
And that means that this can be used not just for blood and semen and urine, it actually can be used to analyze anything that the microscope would be used to analyze.
Very true.
And I can think of diseases like malaria, anemia as you mentioned, blood cancers. Have you also used your solution for an area that possibly was not being analyzed by human pathologists?
That's a very good point actually. So let's take the example of anemia. Anemia causes the red blood cells in a person to deform. Either they become smaller or they become shapes which they are not supposed to be. And anemia as a disease is very prevalent in India. Now, today when a doctor looks at an anemic sample under a microscope, she can only do a qualitative analysis of the blood cells. Because they are so large in number, it's difficult to count and quantify them. On the other hand, our solution is actually driven by the machine. So it can easily quantify what was not possible today. So this can actually open up a whole new way of diagnosing different types of anemia.
Wonderful. So you've created a new solution. You've created a new solution that allows a new kind of diagnostics. So it's creating a new market of diagnostics that did not exist before. And I can also see global applicability because the dynamics we're talking about in India, not having enough doctors, not having enough labs, are issues that several emerging markets face across the globe. So we could see you expanding beyond India.
Definitely. So that is well in our path. So what we are doing right now is we are undergoing the regulatory pathway, which will enable us to get all the required certifications for us to reach the global market. And when I say global market, emerging markets is definitely one of our main target areas. And we are so happy to have IFC as our partner because IFC is all about emerging markets.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tatha. Thank you, viewers. If you're curious to learn more about Sigtapul or about IFC's work in disruptive technologies, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm based in the Delhi office. If you're in town, would love to grab coffee. Thank you.